You think winners are different from you, stronger, more confident, more certain, like they were built for something you weren't. And maybe that's the story you've been telling yourself for a long time, that some people are just made to succeed and others are not. And if that's true, then it makes sense why you feel stuck, why you hesitate, why you doubt yourself every time things get hard. Because deep down, you believe you're not that kind of person, not the kind who pushes through, not the kind who keeps going, not the kind who becomes something more. But what if that's not true? What if the difference between you and the people you call winners is not who they are, but what they do when things stop making sense? Because here's something you haven't been told. Winners don't feel ready. They don't feel confident all the time. They don't move forward with certainty. They feel the same doubt, the same hesitation, the same fear of failing, the same voice in their head telling them to stop. The difference is, they don't treat that voice as a signal to quit. They treat it as part of the process. And that changes everything, because most people, when they feel doubt, they assume something is wrong. They assume they're not capable. They assume they should stop, and they listen. They step back. They wait. They try to find clarity before they move. But clarity rarely comes before action. It comes from it. And this is where the gap starts to grow, not in talent, not in intelligence, but in response. How you respond to uncertainty, how you respond to discomfort, how you respond when things don't go the way you expected. And this is where most people lose, not because they can't win, but because they interpret the struggle as a sign they're not meant for it. But what if struggle is not a signal to stop? What if it's a signal that you're exactly where you need to be? And that idea, it's uncomfortable because it means you can't escape it. You can't wait for it to feel easy. You can't wait until you're confident. You have to move anyway. And that's what winners do. Not perfectly, not consistently, but repeatedly. They return again and again, even after doubt, even after failure, even after losing momentum. They come back. And that's something most people never do. They stop. They disappear. They convince themselves it's not for them, and they move on. But the ones who become something more, they don't leave. And this is the part that changes everything. Because once you stop leaving, once you stop quitting at the first sign of discomfort, something shifts. Not outside, but inside. Your relationship with difficulty changes. It stops being something you avoid and becomes something you expect, something you understand, something you're willing to face. And over time, that willingness becomes identity. Not because you decided it, but because you proved it to yourself through repetition. And that's how confidence is built, not from success, but from staying. And this is what most people get wrong. They think confidence comes first, and then action follows. But it's the opposite. Action comes first, and confidence follows, slowly, quietly, in the background, as you keep showing up, even when you don't feel like it, even when you're unsure, even when you doubt everything. And this is where the real mindset of a winner begins. Not in belief, but in behavior. Not in thinking differently, but in acting despite thinking the same. And that's something you can do right now without becoming someone else, without waiting for a different version of yourself. Because the version of you that can keep going already exists. It just hasn't been practiced enough. And maybe that's the shift you need. Not to change who you are, but to stop leaving when it gets hard. To stop assuming doubt means you should stop. To stop waiting for certainty that will never come. And just stay, just a little longer, each time. Because that's what separates the people who eventually get there from the ones who don't. Not that they're better, but that they stayed. And if you've been feeling like you're not enough, like you don't have what it takes, like you're not that kind of person, maybe you've just been leaving too soon. Maybe you've been walking away right before things started to change. And if that's true, then nothing is actually missing. Nothing is broken. Nothing needs to be fixed. You just need to stay. And if this resonates with you, you don't have to prove anything. You don't have to become someone new overnight. Just notice. The next time things get hard. The next time doubt shows up. And instead of stepping away, stay just a little longer. And if you see yourself in these words, you can leave a comment, not for anyone else, but to remind yourself that you're still here, still trying, still capable. And if you know someone who feels like they're not enough, you can share this with them. Because sometimes the only difference between giving up and becoming something more is staying just a little longer.